today I want to look at using state machines for handling the different states that our player can be in. So this is a multiplayer template I've been working towards. The last video or I guess the last couple streams, we looked at how to move the player and turn the player based on, the camera rotation, and we added animations to the player and actually added the player mesh. This is what we can see right now. But the only thing is we haven't actually applied those meshes. We haven't applied those animations when the player actually moves. And before I do that, though, I want to establish a state machine implementation for applying the motions like jumping and running or walking and idling and those types of things. So as part of that, I think the animations will kind of get baked into it. So if I know I said in the last stream that we would look at animations, so I think I will, but it's going to be after I figure out the state machine stuff. So for now, it's just a simple plane, and we can move the character around. He does jump, but and look, he does face the direction of wherever the camera is. And let's just make sure that motion is synchronized to the other clients, and it looks like it is. So that's where we left off. And of course, once we figure out everything and the movements, the player should walk and show those walking animations. And let me just make sure it's working on the third and final. So, it's really good to test when you're working on multiplayer stuff on at least 3. If you're just testing something really quick and there's probably not, I guess, how would you know if there's a chance it's going to break or not? But in my experience, certain things like authority will show up, upon launching that third client, because you're missing out on that third person or that third peer being synchronized. Whereas on the host in this setup, we have a host and 2 clients. And if you just had a host and 1 client, well, it might work on the 1 client and it might work on the host because he has authority over everything, because he's basically the server acting as a client. But then you fire up that third client and then you'll notice that something isn't synchronized. But in this case, if we just move back over to, I'm going to move over to the second client. So that's the one on the right. We can see that we can spin him around and he is being synchronized throughout all the other clients. So that's good. And I think we've got that as a good, I guess, where we left off last time. And just to kind of recap really quick, all we're doing is synchronizing the direction of the player based on keyboard input. So like import direction is just based on keyboard, jump is spacebar, run input is shift. And I think we have one more synchronizer. If we go down to I believe it's under the camera input scene. Yeah, I have a camera synchronizer as part of our camera inputs. And so what that means is the rotation of the mount. So that's like your up and down, and then the camera rotation back and forth. I have them broken out into 2 separate nodes. Those are going to be client driven, synchronized from the client side, or client authority. So those are the 5 things that are basically driving our player right now. So that's where we left off. This is the mesh that we added. I was watching some Godot videos trying to learn a little bit more about some things in Godot, and I stumbled upon this Shaggy dev. If you guys haven't watched his stuff, he kind of walks you through a really basic player controller. I'm going to be following his tutorial and his mechanisms for setting this up today. I'm going to do it blindly. I spent about a half hour or so studying the pattern a little bit to see how he implemented this, and I really like it. I think it's a great starting point, and if we find improvements along the way, we can make those improvements as we go. It's not really a big deal, but this is obviously not supposed to be the end all be all for state machine implementations. It's just where he landed with it, and I think it's a really good starting point. So I've downloaded his project. You can check it out, the Shaggy Dev, on GitHub, and I cloned it. And there's a project under here called Godot 4 called Advanced State Machine. So I just grabbed that, and I also have it open. So we're going to reference that. I'm going to do a lot of copy and pasting today, just blindly. I'm just going to blindly go with it. And then as I review the functionality, I can tailor it to fit my needs as needed. You can use state machine for lots of things, but I'm going to be using it, or I'm going to attempt to use it to manage the different movement states uh in the player's controller. So for hit, excuse me, for managing like walk, run, idle, and jump. So I'm going to start with those four. I think I'm going to start really basic, get the basic state machine. I'm going to attempt to do this today. I don't know where it's going to go, but I'm just letting you guys know that I have a fallback commit here in case I break something. Yeah, I haven't changed anything since the last stream. This is literally the commit to where I left off. So that's our stopping point. I'm a little, unsure where this is going to go because I haven't done the state machine implementation with a multiplayer setup. So this is his project, this advanced state machines, this project that he's talking about in this video, which I just mentioned a second ago, is I have it open here and I'm going to reference it. So I think that'll be helpful to just see that side by side. And I didn't want to put it off screen because then you guys kind of lose context with that. So I'm going to have to refactor a lot of stuff. If you look at my setup, so the way he's got it is if we start at the player script, he just has a movement state machine object with a node and a attached script. But to supersede that though, he also has a state machine, a generic state machine script. And I want to do that too. So I like this state machine script here. It's got the starting state and current state. So let me come down here. I can close out this network, leave the player scene stuff open, close this out. I'm going to create another script folder because I want to move all this state stuff into its own area. It's like, I don't know how nested I want to get with it. For now, I'm just going to put it under states. And if I don't like that, I can change it later. And then under scenes, it's actually going to be under player, the scene stuff. So maybe under player, I'll just have another folder and call it states. And then I can refactor later if needed. And so I think the first thing I want to do is just create that state machine script. Because that'll not script, but the scene. So let's do that. Nope. Okay, and I think that can just be a node. That should be right there. Great, and then let's go ahead and add a script for that. Stick it under the states folder. Cool. Now, so I'm going to do a big no-no and just do a bunch of copy pasting in this demo because I just want to get it. So the Shaggy Dev, I'm copying, pasting your code, so you get credit for this. And I don't have a state class, or script or whatever. So let's create that. Create a script. Yeah, I guess I'm just debating. And is it? So his state has references to movements, but he uses the states for other non-movement things. So I'm almost thinking, should I make this like state movement? Movement state. For now, I guess I can just leave it states. And if it looks like I need to, these are the things that I'm thinking of while building this out. Like, is my naming convention going to work for this? And I can circle back to it. It's not that big of a deal. I want to change it later if I feel like I can create a better implementation for it. So let's just do what he was doing and let's create a class and we'll just name that state or script. And then that way in our state machine, we can pull that back. You can have different state machines in the state class. Yeah, that's kind of what I figured. And if I need to rename it later on, I can do that. So this is his state machine. So he's got a starting state and a current state. I like to keep my exports on the same line, just my style, preferred style. Okay, so then he on a init, he passes in a move component. And then he immediately changes to the starting state. That makes sense. And then he has a couple, or I guess one helper function to change to the new state. And he has a exit helper function that I believe is stubbed out into state. Okay, so let's grab his basic state. And again, like I said, I'm going to start out with his base implementation, and then I can make edits as needed. And also just copy that really quick. So he has these helper functions, which are really cool. On enter and exit of the state, you can perform whatever, ancillary support functionality that you need to do to get the state up and running. So I thought that was really cool. And then back over here, where was I? I was talking about, okay, so that was change state. So yeah, so he hits exit the current state, enter the whatever startup logic that you need to run, and then he stubbed out process physics, process input, and process frame. So this is like your process function, and this is your process or your physics process, and then your inputs. I don't know if I'm going to do it this way, but I'm going to leave it for now. And let's see if what's the next thing I want to do. If we go back over to player, where was I at? So yeah, I guess I have a state. I need to create a state machine under player. So let's create I think I want to do is a node, and then I think I want to call it movement state machine. I'm just going to name it SM because I don't really want to write out state machine every single time. And let me just do this. Yeah. And then we need a state. So maybe let's start with idle, and then I'll bake in some logic, and then I'll just piece it all together and see if it works out. Movement state machine. Okay, so let's add a state for idle. I think I want to add a scene for idle under states. Yeah, let's do an idle scene. Build one out, see what happens. And script idle GD, and I put it in the wrong spot. Go down here. Sometimes reassigning scripts or resources or renaming them produces unexpected results. I don't know if you guys have seen that. I've renamed things and it's caused like I renamed a scene or something, and it caused it to blow up a little bit. I had to close it and maybe even like refresh the project to get those little kinks to go away. So I have his basic state machine. We have a basic state defined. I don't have a move component or anything set up yet, so I think that's what we'll need to do. Well, I do have a move component. It's this, but it's not linked the way that he's done it. So let me just check under the player. So all this is going to have to be moved, like the gravity. We're going to have to probably move that out and establish the state machine here. So let me just pull up his stuff as a reference and let's see how he's doing it. So he's just referencing the, oh, I should probably drag the idle scene while I'm remembering. So, okay, so now we have our first state, which is the idle. He's lowercasing as a naming convention, and I've been uppercasing the first letter, and I'm not actually sure why I named it this way. I'm going to do it this. I just, for some reason, I like everything in my tree, whatever this case is called, capital case or whatever they call it. And I like to do underscores in my, I don't know, I think my head might be in the way, but I don't know if you can see my folder structure down here. Yeah, I guess like right here, you can kind of see that I, do lowercase and then state underscore machine. I don't know why I'm talking about that, but it's just, a style preference. All right, so let's see this. What am I doing right now? So for my last stream, I moved all the processing of the movements to only the server side. So right now, this example is fully server authority except for the player input. There's no lag compensation. I want to do that, but I want to handle that in a later video. I want to get this state machine movement based setup first, and then I want to move to, and then I'll do a lag compensation with NetFox, and that should give us a basic lag compensation solution for a simple 3D game. I don't know what the limits are of it yet. You know, I think maybe I'm building out a game right now, so I'm going to get this template done, and then the game that I made for my game jam, I'm going to use that as a starting point, and I'm going to put that on Steam, and I'm going to use these, you know, basically these things that I'm learning here today, and over the next couple weeks, not learning, but the things I'm going to build out as a basis for that game. I might rewrite it. I might just pick off from where the game jam status left off. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. And if NetFox ends up working out for this, then I'll move NetFox to that as well, because it's a 3D platformer action kind of game. It plays really fun. I had a couple people play test it with me, and I think it has some potential. So for a good first multiplayer game on solo dev game on Steam. Okay, so we need to build out what he's doing, similar to what he's doing. So I'm going to look up at his example here. I'll just pull it down for a minute. So he has, this is a 2D project. So we're going to work in 3 dimensions for this, but so he's got this movement state machine. So I think we need to add that, and then we need to set it up and figure out how I want to do the inputs and figure out how I want to apply the physics. So this is our process physics. And let's just create an instance, or let's just create a variable for that. Where did he do that? He just said, he just did an onReady and then grab the state machine. So I guess we'll start with that. And then if we need to make adjustments. So this is a movement state machine. And I want this to be private to the class. So I'm going to put an underscore to indicate that. And that's just a node. And then I don't know why we can't use composition for this. We're using composition for everything else. It kind of makes sense to me to use it. So I'm gonna stray off from the way that he did that. And instead of doing an onReady, I'm gonna do an onExport, and then I'm gonna assign the movement state machine. I wonder if there's an oversight here that I'm missing, and why he did onReady versus export. I know it's interesting. It's interesting that he did. I don't know. And then in the ready, he calls init. So we have an enter tree to set up our authority, which we may have to revisit. Okay, so he's passing a reference to a self. Let's just go look at that state machine. All right. So he's passing, it's not a character 2D, sorry, it's character 3D. So we need to make that adjustment. And I don't think he has a reference to, he does. So let me just copy paste that. Animated sprite, not going to use that. That's going to be backed out probably. Well, I know for sure it's not going to be used, but so I know I'm not going to need animations because I don't have animation 2D sprites. So I'm going to have to pass null to this for now. So if I go back under player, and I'm going to pass a reference to the player, which is self, and then I'm going to pass a reference to null because hopefully that doesn't complain. And then the third thing, I already forgot, is the move component. So this is where I need to make a decision. So what is he doing? So the player move component for him is his input script. So that would map to my player input over here. So what is he doing with it? Let's actually investigate what he's doing with it. So move component isn't doing anything here, but he's looping through all of the sub states, right? So let me make sure, right? Yeah. So I created a reference to the movement state machine, which is this. And then he's looping through all of them and assigning the movement controller to it. So he's taking the move component, and where is he using? Let's pick a thing. Move component. Does he reference it here? Move state. So I think the move component is referenced here. It's got to be under the state. Yeah, that's how he's doing it. So he's abstracting it away into get movement input. Okay, so this is going to be tricky. So how do I apply that to mine? So I can call for idle state. I don't really need anything. So maybe I'll just get it working and then I'll circle back to that because I think I might be jumping ahead. Let me just get something working. So let's just see what he's doing here. So he's got all the different states, which I don't care about yet. And did I actually? Oh, so this is a state. So let's get that set up. And now that we have a state, we can override or implement. Well, there's no interfaces in Godot. No traditional built-in functionality for that. And I keep wanting to use interfaces. And so you kind of have to fake it just fine. So what am I overriding here? Enter. And so idle is just setting the parent velocity to 0. Okay. So if we go under idle, under mine, we'll just do that. So on enter, we have this X. No, it's going to be everything. So I think it's going to be a vector 3, 0. Can we do that? And let me just double check what I was doing because I do have an idle state, I think, or maybe not. Maybe I don't. Do I have a towards idle? Yeah, I think this is going to be moving towards that. All right, whatever. And so process input is, we're going to circle back around to that. And then process physics. I'm just going to grab this as a reference to what I should be doing. So this is his version of the velocity. So why would his idle have any of that? So I think he's just ensuring that you're falling, like gravity is still applied, which is not here. Where is that? I think I have that outside of it. Yeah, it's right there. So I'm gonna just copy my own code, put it up. I'll just stick it at the bottom for now. And that's parent. So we need to say parent dot, and I'm gonna wrap that. I'm gonna remove that and call my own method. Fall state. Nope, I'm not gonna do that for now. Because I don't have a false state. So if he's not on floor, he is just going to not do anything. But I'm going to leave that as a reference because I think we'll want to do that. And then move and slide, of course, is there. I'm already doing a player reference. Like I've already encapsulated my entire movement into its own script. So this should be easier than I expect. It's just trying to get my head around it. If parent, and parent is in state, right? Yes, and it's a 3D body. Is that the same that I'm using? I'm using player. Do I want to use player? Yeah, I can use player. I'm going to try to stick to my way of handling this because I'm not using I'm going to use player instead of character 3D body. And hopefully that doesn't break anything, which means I'm going to pass it in here too. So, okay. Probably don't need that for idle stuff. So that is the, oh, I still need to figure out and wrap it back around to the input stuff. So all this is going to do in idle state right now is just move him to the ground if he's just standing still. So if he's just standing still, it's not going to really do anything. So what did the enter do in super animations? So I'm not going to have animations. So I need to actually comment that out for now. So this is a to do, which is kind of nice that that's stubbed out because then I'll know where to put my animation so I can actually play an idle animation. But that'll be secondary to this. So I just want to get something basic working. I can just pass null for now and then come back to it. If I want to do this, I could do it a different way. I can say, I can do it by composition, right? Because that's how I'm doing it in the controller. So here's my player input. This is how I'm using it here. So I basically just need to implement, just copy this and it should just work, maybe. So let's try, instead of doing it this way. Oh man, here goes. What do I want to do? Player, or let me see. What do I want to call it? I want to call it player input, but he's calling it move component. So I don't want to forget that that's what that was. So I'm going to say player input move component, just so I remember. And I'll probably rename that. And I think that's a node. Yeah, I'm loving the composition setup with this engine. And it allows for you to adjust things, like to make changes and refactor things in a nice way. So now that we have, let me select it. So now my state machine should have you can't access a change in the, oh, I didn't attach the script. Let me see, is he doing it in, this is one thing I wanted to check on. State machine. So he has a standalone machine and he has his default state machine, but in the player, he also has it there. So let's do that. Open that back up. I do have it there, and there it is there. What? This. Oh, come on. I didn't add the node right. What's it called? What am I doing? Man. Here, drag this to, I need it to not be under anything. So this needs to go here. There we go. I just created a node, and forgot about doing things correctly. So I just want to bring that underneath this without being nested. And of course it nested it. How do you unnest it? Close, and then drag down. There we go. All right. Now it should have the things that I want. So starting state, oh, it's coming together. And our move input guy is this. And let's look at player input script again. And it's exactly what we want. It's going to give us input direction. So that means that I should probably create functions similar to this get movement direction. And I could just, I don't have to. I could just say get movement and then just return this. I mean, that's all that's doing, right? Get movement direction. Let's look at his example. Yeah, it's just returning input, which is exactly what I'm doing. It would just be returning that. But I don't think I need to go through all that trouble. So I'm going to say, let's just assign that there. Now our state machine has a reference to our move stuff, which means instead of the move component being passed in this manner, it would be set like this. And I still don't even know if we need to assign the movement to each child. I guess that's okay for now, but that means I need to remove this, and I'm going to keep a reference to it. Like anytime I'm doing like weird refactors, I like to keep a reference to it. So my player can establish the movement state machine, doesn't need a reference to the movement component anymore. And I think I'm just going to just remove that for now. And then let's check what he was doing again. So he just inits it and then does this process input thing, which I'm still trying to wrap my brain around, but I'm going to come back to that. But in the physics process, he just calls process physics. So that's here. And that would mean I need to do this. Probably remove that. So I'm going to say old stuff. New state stuff. Process. I actually don't remember the name of it. Oh, you just named it process physics. Okay. So process physics, and then I think we passed delta. And yeah, so whatever current state is active, that's what we are going to run. We got our state machine. Oh, I need to call it movement state machine. Yeah, there we go. And I have it assigned. No, I don't have it assigned because I changed it. How easy is that? Just to like click around and assign things. Love it. Love how easy that is. Process physics for our first state is going to be idle. So what else do I need to do? All right, so we're going to be spamming process physics now on our state machine, which means all of this is going to be irrelevant. I'm probably going to need this here for now, or else they're not going to move. And man, trying to wedge this in is a little difficult. But so now that we have process physics, that's going to call over to our only state, which is this function. And it's just going to apply a gravity and put them to the ground. That's the only thing that's going to happen. I'm trying to think how this would work in a multiplayer sense. So this is like a good single player setup. But what's going to happen is the second you introduce another player, it's not going to work. So I need to separate out this orientation stuff, but I have to think about it some more before I do that. All right. So if I process his movement to sit idle, nothing should happen. But it should also happen because this is that naive implementation where you're not going to, there's no lag compensation. So he's going to be stuck there until, synchronization of his movement goes back to the server, calculates the movement, and then that movement is synchronized. However, I'm going to just test on the host for now. So I think what I want to do is if I remove this, it'll just sit there. So I'm going to just try it. And because I think I need to make the mistake before I can wrap my head around it. But I want to make sure everything's set up. So he is actually processing inputs, so we're not going to do that yet. And I think what's going to happen is we're going to process our movement inputs. That's what I needed. I knew I was forgetting it, the inputs. But yeah, we're not there yet because we're just idling. All right, let me just run this. Probably a bad idea. And I'm just going to run one. And it should just work. Like nothing should happen. I'm pressing the keyboard and the mouse works because the player, if you look over on the left, let me see if I can get out of there. The input still works because I have this node over here, this camera node, and that is going to handle all my mouse inputs. So that's why you see it moving around. And that's okay because I need to figure out how I want to do that. And that may not necessarily need to really be tied into the state machine, except for the part that I'm synchronizing, which is just the rotation of the camera. Okay, so our idle state is working and nothing's happening, and that's what we expect. I could apply an animation. But I don't have it set up yet. I don't want to get that far ahead of myself yet. So let's just try to do a movement. Let's just try to get him to move a little bit. So the other state that we need to do is move. So we need a move state to transition to. So I'm going to just stub that out. So let's do new scene, and I'm going to just call it move just to keep it simple for now. Right? Do I need to, how is this not? Oh, because I have a reference to the character's 3D body or the player. I don't need this to be a 3D scene because we're going to give him a reference to it. Okay, so we have move, and we're going to need to stick a script on it. And let's just call it move, and it's going to be under scripts. Cool. And it's not a node, it's a state, which is this guy. And let's open that back up. We don't need those because it's not that type of node. And let's look at what he's doing. Okay, so process input's going to have to happen. Get movement input. That's how it's, I keep forgetting, and then I keep remembering. Okay, so this is everything that we're kind of doing already. I don't have a fall state yet. I will need one. We will need a fall state. I don't even know if this guy supports a fall animation, like where they're just kind of in the air falling and their arms are moving around. I don't think that was supported. So we're going to have to circle back to that. But process physics float is, he's overriding the superclass. So let's go do that. Process physics float. So we'll just grab that and come back up here. And let's see. I think that is going to be all this stuff. See, I'm doing jump as well. And this is applying all the movement stuff. So I don't know if this is going to work, but I need to go through it to make sure. And then we can probably figure out from here which things that we still need. Like this camera input stuff. And all right, it's not player reference, it's parent. So let's just take care of the low hanging fruit. So parent, player ref. Oh, I'm missing a bunch of the constants. Just cool. Player ref. All right. Okay, so now we need a bunch of constants. So I'm going to be lazy and go over to this and copy paste. I think this is heading in the right direction. So we should see a lot more go away. So now we're back down to camera input, player model, player input, and that was it. Oh, I don't have process jump, which is probably going to be its own state. So we're going to hold off on that. So let's do a to do, because I can't wrap my head around two different threads. I'm single threaded. Now, how do we want to handle this camera stuff? Because he's not really addressing that. So I'm thinking composition, or nobody else needs this. So like the idle, nobody else cares. Actually, maybe they do. Maybe they do care. Maybe each state under, where we're assigning the move component, maybe we need to assign camera component. That's interesting. I just had a thought that like all this is not going to work. I just had this like dread thought really quick that I'm like, you know what? None of this is going to work. This is going to be overcomplicated, but I'm going to power through because I'm not sure. And I'm going to start easy, and I'm only going to add the export of the camera to the actual move state. I'm thinking two things at once, because I'm thinking what's more important is the player input, and the way that he's getting player input was through that move component, which we do have access to. Okay, so that's a really good thing. I already handled that. So how do we get that? How was he doing it? He was just calling get movement input. Oh, so that means in my state, move component, instead of that, instead of get move direction, we don't have a move direction. So we have input direction. Yeah, I could put it in a function, but I'm going to leave it like that for now because we just want that. We just want that. I think that's doing the exact same thing. And wants jump, I don't have that implemented. I just have jump strength from the input. That doesn't really map, so I'm gonna have to revisit that. And we're just gonna look at the movement first. So if we go back, input direction is given by calling the super classes get movement input. All right. Okay. So I shouldn't be calling any of that. It should just be that. Right? Right? Right. And then run input is not supported yet, but it can be really easily if I just add a function that says run input and excuse me, and that would go back to this again. I don't know if I want to do it that way though. So I'm going to hold off, and we're not going to be able to run yet. We're just going to be able to walk. So we want to walk first before we run, right? So then what else am I missing? The player model, because I'm doing something a little different. I'm moving my model and not just the player object, and I need the camera input. And I don't know why this is complaining. What? Why are you complaining? Why is this function complaining? Is it just complaining because all this other stuff is broken? Whatever. All right, so I also need player model and a camera input. So I'm thinking for now, just to get this working, I think we can add 2 composition variables or pass in 2 variables by composition or the camera input in the model. And then we'll go back and make it. We're going to do this as a test, and then we'll go back and make it solidify the implementation and clean it up. So let's just try to do that because I'm not sure if that's the way I want to do it. And since we can just get away with testing it for now. So let me just copy what I'm doing over here. So I just do camera input and model. So it's literally, player input. No, it's camera input, right? Well, we're not using player input anymore. It's just camera input and the player model. All right. Now, not all code paths return a value. That's because he has a way to return stuff, and I'm not going to return anything because I don't need to right now. So if I need to add the other state, so let's add our move scene. All right, and then we're going to do camera input, and then we're going to do player model, which is the military guy, military male. And I'm going to actually stick a note here. Consider moving to state superclass. I think superclass is one word. And let's see. Camera input. It's going to get us our camera stuff. And this is stuff that is synchronized. Yeah, rotation is just making sure didn't miss anything. And then input direction, we handled that. And what was the other one? The model. The model is here. Why do I feel like I did something like that already? Oh yeah, and then we have to do the jump, which I already have it to do for that. Did I write? Okay. Okay, so what's going to happen? So we're not going to do jump. Everything we just added is basically all this, except we don't have if movement. Okay, so this is the move thing. We have all that working. And we don't have gravity being applied, do we? Did I apply gravity under mine? No, we need to do that. So we're gonna just, I feel like there's a better way to do this, but for now we're just gonna do it like this, and then I can optimize later. And I think I just stick it up here and type in random stuff. Go back to his example. So under his idle, we need to do this check. This, the way that he's doing it stops, it moves the player to idle, but the player's going to have velocity. So we don't want them to snap to 0. So I'm not sure if when he goes to idle, oh, sorry, that's the opposite. If he's actually moving. So yeah, sorry, I was totally looking at that the wrong way. No, this is good. So I need to add a move state to my idle, which is here. Export. I think I'll just do idle state. And I think it's a state. I think that's what he was doing. Yep. And we need to, oh, I did it in the wrong one. Well, I need to just say move state, right? Because we're going from idle to move. I should have just copied that. Oh, here we go. And then in move, we need one of them. Let's make the states at the top for now. And now we'll just go, we'll have this like circular dependency, which is fun. Sort of. All right. So to go from idle to move, we need to do the check that he's doing, which is like, is your input. Yeah, but then I have to implement that thing that he's doing, and I'm not sure I want to do it that way. So I need to do it differently, maybe. Let's just do a placeholder for now in my project, and then we'll see. So he has this thing under function, what was it? Process input or something. Did he do a float? Process input event. Sorry, event. I don't want to do that for now. So I'm just gonna, I just want to look at it in the context of my script. So if I want to be able to process input under move, we just do this, which maps to the input direction, which is the same thing. I think it's going to be length and not 0, because I think it's a vector. This is a vector. No, it's not a vector. But yeah, it is. Input direction is a vector. So if it's like not equal to 0, I want it to be like 0, 0, 1 or something, or 0, 1. Because sometimes these like, oh wait, no, this is sorry, I'm mixing up velocity and the actual keyed input. So I'm already handling the input in another script. So way that he's doing this is he's not running his inputs in his physics process. He's just calling it from like unhandled input somewhere, I think. Yeah. I don't know if that's the best way to do it, but let's just try it because I'm not really sure right now with that. Right here. And ours is called something else. So process input maps to here. So it just takes the current state and spams process input, which under our idle function will hit this. And of course, that's not the correct signature of that function. So we need to update that. Nope. I need to go look 20 yards away for 20 seconds and like a minute because my eyes are really tired. Move state. Been complaining this whole time because of an underscore. And what's the problem? Return null. I think that's all I needed to do. Yeah. Okay. So if wait, state had a different signature. Wait, what? Yeah. It returned state. Why did I return? Oh, I returned that. Oh, come on. I grabbed the wrong signature. Whoops. All right, go back and that one. There we go. Now we're under the correct idle state guy thing. Did he name his individual states? He didn't. Whatever. All right. So if our keyboard inputs, we say go transition to the move state. And that's going to change state. And then upon entering the state, play animations by default, but I'm not doing that. How does it not just spam that all the time? How does it not? Hold on. I need to figure something out. Oh, because it's on input. That's why. Okay. This might not work. Oh, I'm returning a float and needs to return a vector, right? Because this is a vector under there. Yeah, this is returning a vector. So yeah, because we're in 3D world. Okay, that's fair. I think I just need to change that to a vector 2 and make sure I'm not using it there. Right. So then this is going to need to say if it's not equal to vector.0 because we're using a different style setup, input style setup. It worked. I'm just a little amazed that it's actually working. I thought for sure I would miss something. My eyes are like really tired. Hold on. I don't believe that it's working. That's like that's why I don't believe it. So hold on. I don't have any of my old code running. The only thing we're running right now is the state machines process physics function, right? Which is just spamming the process function of our current state. Our current state starts in idle, and idle's like, yeah, whatever, man, you're not doing anything. And then the second I move, right, it's just applying gravity. So if I fell off that ledge, it would probably just fall down. I should probably test that. And if I push something on the keyboard, it moves. Now, I guess it just transitions to the move state, and then it starts spamming process physics, which moves our character. Now, the trick is, how do you apply do we need to actually synchronize states? Like, do we need to actually synchronize states to other clients, or like, because that would handle the animation stuff, right? Like, you know, we can have animations tied into this chunk, this physics process here. We can, because I think that's if we go and look at where's his idle, I don't know where his idle animation is. Maybe that's his default animation. Oh, it's hidden. State dot animations play. So animation name is probably set to idle somewhere. I don't know. I haven't tracked it down yet. Where would that be set? Anyways, let's just assume it's set to idle. And then when you move, you got to walk, right? So he's changing the direction of the animation. So somewhere the animation is getting set. I didn't piece that together. Actually, I think it was happening when you declare it in the state. So where is that? Animation name, play, animation name. Where's the animation name getting set here? Oh, composition. I mean, not composition, but he's just assigning it. So fall has fall, jump is jump animation, idle is idle. All right, that was easy. I should have saw that earlier, but whatever. When he enters the state, he doesn't need to do anything special because the state will automatically run whatever assigned animation it is, which is really cool. So we need to synchronize that, the current animation, or we just synchronize the state and then it'll handle it for us. I think it would be silly to not do that, because what would be the point of capturing or tracking states and having that really nice separation of, encapsulation of like changing out the brain of whatever state you're in, your idle brain, your move brain, your jump brain, and then not syncing that to allow the other peers to be able to execute on those actions and animations. But I guess the point I'm trying to say is you don't need, at least in this setup, you don't need the other clients to run all your input to velocity logic, right? You don't have to do it that way. You can do it that way. Like you can just pass your inputs to all the clients, and then all the clients or all the peers will just take your inputs and run it through the movement logic, the whatever function, that deterministic. This is the inputs, this is the outputs, based on your velocity. I guess you could do it that way. But for right now, what I'm saying is the other clients don't really need to recalculate the velocities and stuff, just needs to synchronize it. So somehow I need to like shave off part of these states to not have to, like, this physics process doesn't necessarily have to run on every client. I almost think that this chunk of code, it's really this chunk, this stuff. This is my like turning the player stuff based on the camera, which it's kind of a client side thing, but needs to be synchronized to the server from, where was it? Camera input. Yeah, so like this line of code and this line of code are client authority. So I need to break this up, but I don't want to do that right now because I've already got enough trying to figure out the state machine stuff. So we got movement working somehow, some magical way. We got movement working using this basic state machine from idle to, did it actually go back to idle? Because my velocity is based off the input, he should go to 0. So if he goes back to 0, idle in this case is just an animation state, really. Or if you were casting a spell, you would have to put him back in idle, right? Because you can't, maybe some spells you can't run and cast at the same time. So that's why you would have to detect, okay, he stopped moving, he's in idle state, and then let's swap back to idle state. So I really like the idea of synchronizing the states. I'm just not so sure we need to run all this logic on all the clients though. Like, because right now, every client, the way that I added this here, would be running this. So in theory, we would wrap this with authority only, and then synchronize velocity. And I think because we want to show animations, we could just, well, if animations can be based, I'm like talking in circles right now. I think animation could be based off the velocity, so we might not even have to do that. But like jumping is like, are you on the ground? If your player velocity synchronized to the other client is not on floor, then you should be showing the jump or fall animation. So I'm going to experiment, and I'm going to say, if I don't want to open 3, if we only run process. So let's think about this. So if we process physics, so we're applying this on the server, and we have a player synchronizer, and I should add velocity in here. I'm not going to right now. I'm going to add velocity later, but in theory, this is going to be calculated based off this. Nothing's going to happen here because he's not on top of anything, but like for move, all this stuff is going to calculate his velocity. So he's going to be moving, and then I'm just updating the position. So that's the only thing we're synchronizing. So it should work. So moving the state machines to the authority side should work. Okay, that seems fine. Oh, I realized the logic for turning him isn't working right now. So that is something I need to think about. It's not working. And it could be because I accidentally, by wrapping that check in authority, I'm accidentally locking the player input to server authority, not even client authority. I bet you it works over here. Yeah. So yeah, I figured it would work. So it is synchronizing because the server has authority, but it's not synchronizing on the other one because, wait, what? It wasn't working a second ago. Why is it working now? What happened? What I just said a second ago about I removed client authority was wrong because I didn't touch that. I don't like to just guess, so I'm trying to process actually what's happening, not just guessing and checking. I had a data structures professor in college that would yell at us about that. He's like, don't just be a guess and check developer. He's like, think about it and know what's going to happen. I'm like, yeah, that's probably really good advice, but yeah, there's only so much you can wrap your head around. So what I was saying a second ago was about the input authority, and that is determined right here. So camera and your keyboard inputs are client side authority, even though we're accessing it on the authority side, because I'm synchronizing it. So this get movement input, sorry, I'm just going to walk through this. So this get movement input calls to a movement component, which is just this player input script here. Is that what I want? Yeah, that's exactly how it worked before I had the player controller. Why wasn't it working 2 seconds ago? Did I not? All right, so there is a delay off that initial input. So there's a bug there. All right, so let's go down to this guy. It's not working yet. Like I'm not able to move it. Oh. Yeah, I could synchronize the state machine, but it doesn't, I don't think that's going to do anything right now. Like that, I don't know if that's going to solve anything. I'm just trying to make sure. Okay, so this top guy's in this corner. This guy's over here. We should see him come into view. He's not coming. Wait, he is there. You're looking the wrong way. The other way. Yeah. All right, so why? Why is the initial state not working? That's weird. What do you guys think? Why is that? Let me just try to run it again. All right, let's just see what's going on. All right, so we have our host with server authority, and he's able to move right away. And he can actually rotate correctly because he's server authority. And I think I messed something up with that. Yeah, I'm not synchronizing the orientation anymore. Right, that's right. That was what I'm missing this chunk of code here that synchronizes his orientation. So we see it on the server because he's the server, he's the authority. Okay, now if we launch the other player, I can't move. Can't do anything right now. But if I go back, I go over to the host and then go back to him, still can't move. Interesting. Oh, that's weird. It's almost like if I go and then move the server and then go back to still doesn't work. Why was it working a minute ago? Click it with a mouse. It's capturing the mouse. I don't have control over it. You know what I mean? Like the second you can see me swapping through my windows. I'm just swapping back and forth. So the mouse is immediately captured and then it works. But it doesn't work immediately. Right? Because this would normally work immediately. So did I not set I got my default one. That's good. That's good. So you know what? I want to just see something really quick. I just want to see something really quick. Everybody can ignore this. Yeah, I feel like input capture with multiple windows does cause problems occasionally, but I know I had a baseline working with this, right? Like earlier. So look, I have this window selected now. So this is the client. So I'm clicking in here, so we're good. Then I hit join game. I can't move. Oh, but he's fighting it because I added the change. I added the change. So it's trying to run it on both client and server authority. And that's when you see this jitter of the bottom screen, that is usually a symptom that you're running things on authorities that they shouldn't be ran on. Like you're running something in both client and server authority at the same time. And because your server authority is taking over, it's like snapping him back in place. So that's why I have this is authority check there. All right. So that I just wanted to double check something really quick. Calling input inside the process function. So this is a problem. This seems like an issue. Yeah, this seems like duplicate calling. This goes back to what you said like an hour ago when you were like, hey, you're calling it double time. Yeah, in this case, yes. In this case, yes. Because so I don't know if this is going to fix the issue, but this is a problem, right? So this is going to be sitting here listening for events. And when it happens, we go and process the event, which calls to the specific states. No. It just processes the input on that state. So we do that. I'm setting that here. So I'm only setting it to the input though, the input class script, which is this object over here, this player input. I'm giving total authority. What's weird is that it works eventually. That's what's weird about this. Let me just try to debug this for one last time. Okay, so we got our movement code works. There is a delay. There is a weird delay there. It's interesting. And then join game. If I switch to something else and then I click in it, does it fix it? No. If I switch to the other client, so now I'm up top and then I switch down without moving, I'm back down here, then I push forward, still doesn't move. So if I switch up and then move, and then switch back and then move, then it works. Then it works. Why does that work? And let me make sure, let me double check that it's synchronizing. Let me turn the other way. And this guy, yeah. So it is synchronizing the position. So my underlying assumption is that the physics process is getting executed on the server, right? The authority. And it's calling this big old movement function here. Maybe I should enlarge this. You guys see this better? Let me know +1 in the chat if you guys can see the code better. It's probably better to enlarge it a little bit. So I have this big old function here, and this is getting called on the server. But the state machine seems to be giving a delay on the initial state of the second client joining. So I think we might need to go back to the beginning because this was hit and it didn't matter. So when I move the state, when I told the, where is it? When I told the state machine, this feels a little weird. It's like I'm going to just talk this out and see if it makes sense. So process input looks at the movement's velocity, or the movement's keyboard vector. Like this is a keyboard vector. And it's constantly being updated and synchronized. So when that, hold on, right? Yeah, okay. So when that, so this is server side. This process input should be ran server side right now, because the client is supplying it, but it needs to be read on the server. So this should be set on the server side, and that would mean, where is it? That would mean this should be wrapped with this same authority call, because process input is getting the input state and it's telling it to move to the move state. So the state machine will go to the updated state, which should all be on the server. But it shouldn't matter though, because it would be running on both. It would be running on both contexts. Because when we change the, because all this is doing is just informing which state we're at. So it's informing this state machine which state we need to be running the process on. It doesn't need to happen right now on the client side. Oops. Which one is it in? Okay, so that hunch was correct. Okay, so it did update itself. It did hit that started moving, right? Hold on. Let me run this again. Sorry, I forgot what happened. All right, so if I host game, we move, it says start moving, and then if we get over to this one, it doesn't actually trigger that because that to me feels like the inputs are not registered on the client, but that doesn't make any sense because when I do that and then come back, it still moves, but it doesn't show me that start moving call unless it is, and it's just like printing late, like it's on the wrong client. I have like a hunch what's happening, but I just want to investigate this. Get multiplayer authority. Nope. Multiplayer dot get unique. It should work. Wait, that's gonna show one. It's not, I don't want that. That's gonna be one. I need the parent name. That'll give me the network ID of who's moving and not which peer we're on, because that would have printed both peer one. So that says print peer one. So yep. And then if I push stuff, it's not happening. If I swap back to this guy and move again, he moves just fine. And then look, it started moving, and then it said the other client started moving. Oh my god, this is really weird. I don't know, I might have to come back to this. It says started, so it's like I had to go to the other player and move the other player to trigger the other client, this guy, the one that's at the bottom, to start moving. It's like I needed to go to the other player first, which doesn't make any sense. Okay. So what the hell is happening? So this doesn't need to be ran on the client either, this ready function. But player input is, so I guess the problem is the trigger to move the state from idle to move is broken. Okay, so that trigger, this trigger right here, is broken. So this process input is not working as expected for some reason. So get movement is a state which is set by the this. So that is here, and it is set with this player input move component. Right. So that happens under the player script. Right here. So I guess when this init is hit, is that what I was doing? Yeah. It's setting the move component for each child. I make this its own scene. How is the second client's player added to the server's first client? He's the multiplayer spawner adds him in. So the server adds him, right? So the server has authority over the player object, but I'm assigning authority over the inputs to the client right here. I wonder if this is a synchronization problem. Yeah, the multiplayer spawner just adds him in the game spawner. When I add the child in, I have a multiplayer manager script that'll just add him in right here. This child gets added. So that's pretty typical setup. And then once we, I think I'm just not following the flow of something right here. I think that something should be set. It's not. So our state machines processing of the player's inputs, the way it worked before was just worked fine. State get movement input. How does that know to get input from the remote player? That's a good question. So the state, all right. So if I go back to the beginning, so the movement state machine, when it has the player input. So whatever player this represents, the state machine has a reference to it. And that input is set to client authority right here. And so we set the client authority to the input, and then we assign that input object to the state machine. And the state machine sets that reference to each of the individual states. So that input script, that player input script should be relevant to the specific implementation, or the specific instance. There we go. The specific instance of the script. So in theory, this object is assigned to each of these states right here in this line of code. And because we synchronize the inputs when we access them, they're client driven, right? So if we access the move component right here on the server, which this get movement input does, this should be server side, or authority side, I should say. When this is ran authority side, the values that it returns are that replication tab that I just had open, are the input direction, which should be synchronized from the client. But it's not. And there's like a couple things in my head that I'm thinking. Like, one thing is this wrapped in a process physics causing a problem? Like, is somehow the way that we're getting the input here doesn't really work. Like, we're calling the idles. What was it? Sorry, I keep forgetting. The process input on the server, which uses these values, which are synchronized from the client. So your client's pushing buttons here, right? And then those are synchronized. Now, this was an older implementation, and my previous implementation. So if we look at what he's doing, so this is his example project. He's not doing that. He just like returns you the range, just the input access range. So if it's not hit, it's just 0. So if we look at the way that he's doing it, he's doing get access. It's kind of the same thing. He's calling it the same way I am in his player function. He's just spamming it. Well, not spam, but like on an input event, he just runs it through this event logic, and then just detects it that way. So doing it that way, I don't think is going to work, because this is a single player game and I need to tell the server what I just did. So I need to synchronize my inputs when they happen. So my input direction will be set to, like, 1, 0 or whatever. And on the server side, this will get called. Actually, it probably won't be called. So what I'm thinking is this is going to run on the client and the server, but it's not going to run on the client. So it's not going to like the way I have it set up right now is process input. I want to run on the server. I think I need to move this down here. I might have to rethink how to do this. I knew this would be an issue. I knew going into this that the processing the input would be an issue. but that's okay. This process input function is not called on the server because I don't think the server's not going to register this event. So I have to consider spamming this and ignore this event thing. That would be a test. It would be like constantly spamming this though and saying go to move state. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. And I could add a check that's like, are you a different state? You know, that could work. I don't know if you're able to follow me, but like, I think the reason why it's not working is because this isn't called on the server, or I guess this unhandled input isn't called on the server. So it doesn't know to switch. So we need to have a better mechanism for switching states. So maybe our process input needs to be moved down to our physics process. And we need to have better state detection here. Like a last state function. And then we can say like, is the last state different? Because I only care about running this on the server right now, at least. Yeah, I might have to just try that. But I think before I do that, let's do what you said. And let's say unhandled input hit, and then let's print the client percent multiplayer. No, what are we? Name. We're in the player. So this is just going to show unhandled input 1. Right, because that's fine. But if I do this, it's not going to hit that. And I need that to hit that. But since I just moved it there, I don't know why it affects it. I have a problem here. There's definitely a problem here. Wait, it's running both. I think this setup is just bad. All right. Oh, wait, hold on. I need to actually hit, let's say hit on here for client. And we'll say well, I'm just gonna help print that a little better. What did that say? What was that saying? Started moving. So this is applying that to both. Wow. So it's actively applying the inputs for both players, which is weird. Oh, that is so weird. This is such a like weird conundrum that I have here, this bug, because it's not actually, it's what I expect. Like this unhandled input is not getting hit, but he's still able to move because the process physics function is still being hit as expected. I think I'm missing out a big authority thing here because I'm doing something differently. I'm like forgetting to not handle inputs. So this should almost be mapped like on the server. Like it shouldn't be doing that at all. This should be like limited to the actual client itself and not just everybody. But because it's a host, it's getting applied to everybody. Interesting. Another random idea: create a new subsystem to record all clients' inputs in your server system, same machine access instead of actual synchronized player input. Yeah. Yep. That's totally valid. Like a queue system of inputs. That's not a bad idea. I think that could be like maybe a progression on this, but How was I doing that? Because I think I had a system before where I actually implemented something like that, but it wasn't with movement. That was just with actions. But yeah, like I might end up doing something like that. Um, yeah, that we might work towards something like that eventually. But I still want to see if I can do this authority based synchronizer way, and I think I'm on the right track. I think this, because it's not event based. It's not. I'm not updating event based. Like I almost need to make an RPC call. Like this state, I would almost have to run this on both client and server, and then when you start moving, you make an RPC call that's like change the state. You started moving now. Um, but I don't know if I want to do that. But the alternative is, you process input, which are just constantly synchronized. So yeah, this isn't going to work doing it this way. So I would have to, if let's just like for a minute, let me just walk through this. If I process input, if I call process input, um, a couple times, or as many times as it's running, it needs to do something different. So in this case, how does he just has dash, and then he just applies movement because that makes sense. And then jump. He doesn't have it either. Yeah, I think I'm on the right track. I think I just need to make a tweak to how I handle this input, because the states aren't being updated correctly the way I have it now. I have a hack that I can do, which is to monitor the current state. So if I'm in idle and the vector is greater than, yeah, how do I get, does the states have a reference to the current state? Because that would be helpful. So I almost wonder, uh, yeah, so that's a child. So isn't the parent, this should not be called parent, because the technical parent, the get parent, is actually the state machine. Sorry, I'm just thinking out loud right now. So if, let's say I move this process input to be called under physics, and we detect a movement, we move the state to move state, and then at that point this would no longer be called. That would mean I would need to remove this event. All right, so if this refactor works, remove event, and I'm gonna try this. I'm gonna try this, guys. So bear with me. I think I have to pass something. So process event, it's gonna come in here, and it's gonna look at the synchronized value on the server, and it's going to move the state over. And then if it's the same, it's just going to get spammed, return null. So I would maybe add a check in here, but it should at least give me a direction that I should work towards. But that's a good sign that this is still working. I think I fixed it. He's actually rotating correctly on the server. If you look at the top panel, it's just not synchronized back, because remember, everything is server authoritative, and the orientation, unless you've really been following, you probably don't know what I'm talking about, but I just need to synchronize the orientation back. So it is working. And then this guy works too. Okay, let me move him over here. Let's go back down to the client version, and he's working perfectly fine. All right. So my hunch was correct, which was this is going to have to be handled, the state transition. So I think that process input works great for the single player game setup, but for the multiplayer game setup, I'm going to have to approach it a different way. And maybe I guess process input is an okay name because that's what you're doing. You're processing the input to determine the next state. I was thinking maybe I should change it to something like process input for state change. I don't know. Let me just check something. Let me just see. Null. He's using it on idle. He's using it to determine dash. Where is it? That's just the state machine. That's just the, I mean, he's not even really using it. It's not like, yeah, I guess. Okay. So for the gunfire state, like when you hit the trigger button, but that's an RPC call. Yeah. I think that this is one of those things where like I said at the beginning, I'm going to blindly copy paste. And as we run into problems, we are going to, refactor. So I think what we do next is we've got our idle state and our move state working. I want him to go back to idle though. But anyway, so we got our idle and move state working, and the transition between states are going to have to be a little bit cleaner because right now this is getting spammed and this is just returning null. So I guess that's fine. But I think there's a cleaner way to do this. I just want to revisit that at a later time, because like you're just synchronizing the inputs and you're using the inputs to determine the state. That's fine. Okay. But like in this case, this is getting spammed, right? That's good. And if we return to, what was it? What was he saying? If his velocity dropped below, what was it? Yeah, like, so if you're moving, you return the idle state. Do I have a reference to idle state? Yeah, right? Idle state. Okay. So in this case, if, I guess it's parent velocity. I don't want to, it's not 0 because that would take a while. So if it's less than like 0.01, you know what I mean? That's probably a good tolerance. Then let's change the state. Wait, how did I change the state? Oh yeah, you just return it. Return the idle state. Oh, I think length. I think I do that. And then let's do a print just to make sure. Movement move state transition to idle. And then that's gonna work. Is that gonna work? Here we go. This is it. Is this gonna work? Oh, it totally worked. If you look at the logs, it's going right back to idle. And if we do that up here, move, I'm moving, and I stop, idle. Move, idle. Oh man, okay. So I'm just so happy to see that, because now we can tack on our animations to that somehow. We'll have to figure that out based on that velocity. And I don't even have, yeah, the animation player is nested inside of that military mail node. Where's my mouse? This thing, we open that scene. Yeah, here's the animation player. I actually have the animations in here. We set it up last time. Walk. So, there's him walking. So we would apply that somehow, but I don't know. I don't know off the top of my head right now, because that's inside that scene. So we're going to have to get access, maybe I'll create a script on there that we just pass in the velocities or whatever he needs, and then he can determine the animations. I mean, there's a couple ways to approach this. Or maybe what we do is we can, in our state machine, it should be based on state. Like, okay, we're in idle, we can play the idle animation. We're in the move state, we play the walk animation, that kind of thing. So I think I might have to add like another script into the model so that I can play those animations, because I don't know how to get access to that. I'd have to like get I have the player model, right? I guess I can say player model get animation, or get the animation player nested inside of that. That could work. There's a couple ways to do that, and then maybe I'll do that, and then we can make an improvement for that. So I think we've got a good starting point for state machine based animation. I think that's where I'm going to call it today. We struggled through trying to get the state machine implementation by I think is the Shaggy Dev. Yep, the Shaggy Dev projects. So we got his implementation started based off what he did in our game and our game template, and it seems a little heavy at times, but I actually think it's pretty clean. I like it so far. I think we're gonna have to make some improvements to it as we go, and I'm excited to have that. And then we'll fill out this little movement state machine object with all the different states and get some movements in there. And we're gonna revisit this process input guy and rename him to maybe something else, or he's not going to handle events anymore, because that's not how we're doing these actions anymore. It's not event based because we're synchronizing it to the server, the inputs. So if this refactor works, remove event. So this did work. So let's just say revisit. I don't know, revisit with fresh head, maybe fresh mind, because it's just being spammed from the player. It's just being like spammed right now. It's just returning null. It's not really a big deal, right? It's just checking this a bunch, and that's what I don't like. We're just spam checking that once we're in idle, which I guess is okay. Anyways, I'll have to think about it next time, and then maybe we can get the rest of these states. So we'll get our orientation fixed of the player's turn, get that synchronized, hopefully. Maybe we'll get the rest of the states, losing my voice, jump and run, and then get the animations working, and then we'll have a complete state machine. NetFox is going to have to come at a later time. We are not ready for that yet. But we can, I'm not going to commit these changes. Remember, we're on our state machine, or is it add movement state machine branch that I created today. And this is our current progress. So this is our current changes. And we're going to pick up from there when we, in case this doesn't work, I can just revert back to our, original place from the last stream. And anyways, so we can pick back up from there and finish out those movements like I just mentioned, and I index them so I know where I'm going to start next time. And then we'll just try to get the rest of the states and do another lap around this and make another iteration of progress, and I think we'll be good. So I'm happy that we got it working, and we just need to keep at it. So anyways, guys, if you do want to see more of this, please let me know, and I'll just try to stream a little bit more, and we'll go from there. Anyways, all right, we'll see you next time.